A former floor supervisor just shared internal casino data that could completely change how you approach slot machines in 2026. According to documentation from three separate casino chains, there are 10 specific machines that employees actually play themselves when they gamble. And what these insiders know about return to player percentages could save you thousands of dollars. Casinos have spent decades hiding which machines give players legitimate odds, but former technicians are finally revealing the truth. Machine number 1, Lightning Link Wild Chili. Based on insider reports, this is the machine that casino employees call their favorite. Former slot attendants who've watched thousands of players over the years say this specific version of Lightning Link consistently performs differently than almost everything else on the casino floor. The quarter denomination version has an RTP between 94 and 96%, according to internal programming data. That might not sound dramatically different from other machines until you realize most slots you're playing run between 86 and 88%. We're talking about an 8 to 10% difference, which over hundreds of spins translates to significantly more money staying in your pocket. Here's what makes this particularly interesting. A former slot attendant named Sarah documented the play patterns of regular customers for over 2 years as part of her job responsibilities. She told me about a player named Mark who understood something most people don't. Mark would sit down at Wild Chili with exactly $200, and Sarah watched him turn that into $3,400 over a 3-hour session. But this wasn't luck. According to floor data that former technicians have shared, the bonus feature on this machine triggers approximately every 100 to 120 spins. Mark knew the frequency, managed his bankroll around that timing, and the math worked in his favor. Now, before you think 96% RTP is impressive, wait until you hear about machine number 4. The percentage on that one is going to shock you. But here's what former programmers explain about why Wild Chili actually works for players. The hold and spin mechanic isn't just random chaos like most bonus features. Internal documentation shows the symbol distribution follows a pattern that creates what employees call sustainable play. You're not just bleeding money waiting for one massive hit that never comes. Former technicians report the volatility balance is calibrated differently than predatory machines. You hit smaller wins frequently enough to maintain your bankroll while still having legitimate chances at significant payouts. According to former employees, casinos keep this machine on the floor because it creates something they actually value: happy players who return consistently. The business model isn't quick extraction, it's long-term retention. And that programming difference is exactly what makes it worth playing. Machine number 2, Wheel of Fortune, the classic 3-reel version. Now, you might be surprised to see this name on a list of good machines, especially after everything you've heard about Wheel of Fortune video versions being some of the worst slots in any casino. But here's what former technicians want you to understand. The classic 3-reel Wheel of Fortune is a completely different machine with completely different programming than those dangerous video versions. The RTP comparison is startling. According to internal reports, the classic 3-reel version runs between 92 and 94%, while those video versions sit at 86 to 88%. That's a 6 to 8% difference, and former slot technicians explain why. Simpler programming means fewer opportunities for the psychological manipulation tactics that modern video slots employ. The math is more transparent. The wheel spin feature triggers approximately every 180 to 220 spins based on floor data, and when it hits, the payout. Structure follows clearer probability curves. A former pit boss shared documentation about a regular player named Janet who understood this distinction. Janet would walk past every video slot in the casino and sit down exclusively at the classic 3-reel Wheel of Fortune. Over dozens of observed sessions, the pit boss tracked a consistent pattern. Janet would buy in for $300, play for approximately 4 hours, and cash out $520. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. This was a repeatable pattern over months of documentation. Former employees call this grind play, and it actually works on machines with honest programming. The volatility is medium, the hit frequency keeps your bankroll alive, and the wheel spins provide enough significant wins to push you into profit territory if you manage your money correctly. And if you think 94% RTP is good, wait until you hear about machine number 5. The percentage on that one is higher than almost anything else former employees have seen in internal casino reports. We're getting into territory that casinos really don't want discussed publicly. But first, let me tell you about two machines that former employees actually play themselves when they visit casinos on their days off. These aren't just machines with good statistics. These are machines that people who understand slot programming trust with their own money. Machine number 3, Blazing Sevens. Former slot technicians report this is one of the few machines they'd actually played during their breaks, and they have an internal nickname for it, the Honest Machine. According to documentation from former programmers, the dollar denomination version runs between 93 and 95% RTP. But what makes this percentage meaningful is how it's achieved. This is a simple 3-reel mechanical style machine, which means the programming has fewer layers where casinos can hide predatory tactics. Former employees explain that transparent odds come from transparent mechanics. You can see exactly what you're getting. The hit frequency data shows small wins approximately every 8 to 12 spins, with major wins triggering every 400 to 500 spins. That consistency is what former technicians mean when they call it honest. You're not being manipulated by near-miss programming that makes you think you almost won. You either win or you don't, and the math behind those outcomes is cleaner than almost any video slot on a modern casino floor. A floor supervisor documented a regular weekend player named Thomas over a 6-month period. Thomas understood something about bankroll management that most recreational players miss entirely. He'd arrive every Saturday morning with exactly $500, sit down at Blazing Sevens, and play a specific strategy. The floor supervisor's records showed that 68% of Thomas's sessions ended positive. One particularly notable session had Thomas turning that $500 into $1,100 over 6 hours. According to the documentation, Thomas would hit those small wins frequently enough to maintain his bankroll through the natural variance, and when the major wins hit every few hundred spins like the programming indicated, he'd actually accumulate profit. Former employees say, this is what sustainable gambling looks like when the machine isn't programmed to psychologically destroy you. But here's the question former technicians ask. Why do casinos keep these machines on the floor if the programming gives players legitimate odds? The answer reveals something interesting about casino economics. These machines still generate profit through what insiders call the nostalgia trap. Players see classic sevens and feel comfortable, so they play longer sessions. The casino makes money on volume and time rather than aggressive extraction. It's a different business model, and it's one that actually allows informed players to compete with the house edge. Before I reveal machine number 4, which has the highest documented RTP I've ever seen in internal casino reports, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to this channel. This information comes from years of conversations with former casino employees who've shared documentation that casinos don't want public. Let me know in the comments which of these machines you've played and whether you've had the kind of success that Thomas experienced. Machine number 4 is going to change how you think about what's actually possible with slot machine odds. Machine number 4, Double Diamond, the classic version. This is the one that former casino managers told me they actually respect, and when you see the numbers, you'll understand why that word respect matters. According to programming specifications that former technicians have shared, the dollar denomination version runs between 95 and 97% RTP. That percentage is almost unheard of in modern casino environments. Most slots are programmed in the 86 to 90% range, which means Double Diamond is giving you back 7 to 11% more of your money over time. Former employees explain that this RTP exists because the machine predates the aggressive psychological programming tactics that video slots employ. The hit frequency breakdown shows medium volatility with consistent smaller wins maintaining bankroll stability. According to specific spin count data, significant wins trigger predictably enough that informed players can build strategies around the math. A former casino analyst shared internal documentation that tracked the Double Diamond player base over a 12-month period. The data revealed something casinos normally never see. 40% of regular players on this machine maintained or grew their bankrolls over that full year. Compare that to typical machines where only 15 to 20% of players show any long-term sustainability. The reason this happens comes down to programming honesty. Former technicians explain that Double Diamond doesn't employ the near-miss algorithms that make you think you almost won when you actually lost. The symbols either line up or they don't. The probability curves are transparent. And that 97% RTP means you're only fighting a 3% house edge instead of the 12 to 14% edge on predatory machines. Now here's the catch that former employees want you to understand. That 95 to 97% or IP applies specifically to dollar denomination play with maximum bet configurations. The machine requires larger bets to achieve optimal return percentages. This isn't a quarter machine where you can bet minimum and expect those numbers. Former casino hosts explain, this is how casinos justify keeping high RTP machines on the floor. They attract players willing to make substantial bets, and the volume of money moving through the machine generates profit, even with the better return rate. But for players with proper bankroll management who can handle the denomination requirements, this machine represents some of the best odds you'll find anywhere. And if you think 97% RTP is impressive, machine number 7 has something even better. It's not just about the percentage. It's about a psychological advantage that former employees say makes it almost impossible for casinos to maintain their normal edge. Machine number 5. Bonus times the red, white, and blue version. Internal data from 3 separate casinos shows this machine consistently performs in players' favor in ways that former analysts say they've rarely documented. According to programming specifications shared by former technicians, this represents what they call the mathematician's choice. The RTP runs between 94 and 96%, depending on denomination, but what makes these numbers meaningful is how the machine achieves them. The bonus multiplier mechanics operate on what former programmers describe as fair algorithmic distribution. When you trigger the bonus feature, which happens approximately every 80 to 100 spins based on floor observation data, the multiplier system doesn't employ the psychological manipulation tactics you'll find on predatory machines. Former employees explained that the programming was designed before casinos fully understood how to weaponize bonus features against players. Remember earlier when I mentioned a player who actually developed a winning system? This is that story. A former slot attendant named Patricia documented a regular customer over 8 months of consistent play. This player understood something about bonus times that most people miss entirely. She'd tracked the bonus multiplier timing through hundreds of sessions and realized the algorithm followed predictable enough patterns that proper bankroll management could exploit them. Patricia's documentation showed this player turning a $10,000 total investment over those 8 months into $11,200 profit. These weren't estimates or approximations. Patricia kept detailed records as part of her floor responsibilities, tracking buy-ins, cash-outs, and session lengths. The player would arrive with exactly $400, play for 90-minute sessions timed around the bonus frequency data, and manage her bets to survive the variance between triggers. When those multipliers hit, the payout structure was generous enough to overcome the house edge. Former programmers explain why this works when it shouldn't. The multiplier algorithm was coded with what they call legacy fairness, meaning it was designed before modern casinos understood how to maximize extraction while maintaining the illusion of chance. The mathematical advantage exists in the bonus structure because the distribution curve doesn't artificially weight toward lower multipliers the way contemporary machines do. You have legitimate probability of hitting 5 times, 10 times, or even 25 times, multipliers at rates that make the feature genuinely valuable rather than theatrical. According to documentation from former compliance officers, casinos haven't adjusted this programming because of bureaucratic inertia and concerns about alienating the loyal player base that these machines have cultivated over decades. But here's the psychological element that former employees say matters as much as the math. This machine creates what they call the fair gamble feeling. Players don't leave feeling manipulated even when they lose, which means they make better decisions with their bankroll. Former pit supervisors report that players on bonus times show significantly lower rates of desperation, betting, and chasing losses compared to players on modern video slots. That emotional stability translates into sustainable play patterns, and sustainable play patterns are exactly what allow informed players to compete with even a 4 to 6% house edge. But here's where it gets really interesting, because machine number 6 has what former technicians describe as a hidden feature that savvy players who understand the programming can actually exploit. Machine number 6, Jackpot Party. Former employees reveal this machine has a programming quirk that most players never discover, and understanding it changes everything about how the math works in your favor. According to internal documentation from former slot technicians, this machine runs on what they call the party progression system. The baseline RTP sits between 92 and 94%, which is respectable but not extraordinary. But here's what former programmers explain. The effective RTP for informed players who understand the session tracking algorithm reaches 96% or higher. The machine's programming tracks continuous play sessions and increases bonus trigger frequency the longer you stay at the machine. This isn't speculation or theory. Former technicians have shared the actual code documentation showing how the progression system works. Bonus features that might trigger every 200 spins in your first 15 minutes will trigger every 120 spins after 45 to 60 minutes. Continuous play. A former pit supervisor documented this phenomenon with a regular player named David, who clearly understood the progression mechanics. Over 4 months of tracked sessions, David showed a 72% winning rate, which former employees say is almost statistically impossible on random machines. But Jackpot Party isn't purely random once you understand the session timing. David would sit down with $400, play minimum bets for the first 30 minutes while the progression system calibrated, then increase his bet size once he'd crossed into the enhanced trigger frequency zone. The pit supervisor's documentation showed one specific session where David turned $500 into $1,250 in exactly 50 minutes by exploiting this timing. The bonus features triggered 7 times in that final 20-minute window, compared to twice in the first 30 minutes, exactly matching the progression curve that former programmers describe. Why does this programming exist? Former game designers explain it was implemented to encourage longer play sessions, which casinos assumed would increase their profits through volume. But it created an unintended consequence. Players who understand the timing can exploit the enhanced bonus frequency before the extended playtime costs them money through the house edge. Several former technicians told me they'd specifically played Jackpot Party because they understood this progression system. But there's a critical caveat. This strategy requires proper bankroll sizing to survive that first 30 to 45 minutes of lower bonus frequency, and it demands the discipline to leave after you've exploited the enhanced zone rather than giving the money back. Not suitable for casual players looking for quick entertainment, but for informed players with proper session timing discipline, the math genuinely shifts in your favor. And speaking of machines with exploitable patterns, wait until you hear about machine number 8. Because we're getting into territory that casinos actively monitor and former employees say they've seen floor managers actually discuss in security meetings. Machine number 7, Quick Hit Platinum. Based on surveys of former casino employees across multiple states, this machine comes up more than any other when asked what they'd actually play with their own money. Former slot attendants, technicians, and floor supervisors consistently name Quick Hit Platinum. And when you examine the internal data they've shared, the reasoning becomes clear. According to programming specifications from former technicians, this machine runs between 94 and 96% RTP across denominations. But what separates Quick Hit Platinum from other high RTP machines is the progressive jackpot structure. And former programmers explain why this particular implementation is what they call more honest than most. The small progressive counters reset at accessible levels and trigger approximately every 200 to 250 spins, according to floor data. That frequency means you're not chasing impossible jackpots that exist purely for theatrical effect. These progressives actually hit, and they hit often enough to impact your bottom line over a session. A former dealer shared his personal experience with this machine, and the specificity of his account matters. He sat down with exactly $100 during a break, played for 45 minutes, and cashed out $890. According to his documentation, he tracked the spin count and bonus triggers throughout the session. 3 small progressives hit at spins 67, 198, and 312, exactly matching the frequency range that internal data suggests. But here's the long-term documentation that former floor managers have shared that makes this pattern meaningful beyond a single lucky session. A floor manager tracked a regular player named Michelle over 6 months as part of standard casino analytics. Michelle played Quick Hit Platinum exclusively, visiting twice weekly with a $300 entertainment budget. The tracking data showed she won 4 out of 7 sessions monthly on average. Over that full 6-month period, the floor manager's records indicated Michelle wagered $8,400 total and received $9,100 back. That's a $700 profit over half a year of recreational gambling, which former employees say represents something they almost never see in player tracking data. Former programmers explain why this machine produces these outcomes when typical slots don't. The progressive structure creates real value accumulation rather than theatrical illusion. Every spin contributes to counters that actually pay out at documented frequencies. The base game hit frequency maintains your bankroll between progressive triggers, and the occasional major progressive provides legitimate, big win potential without requiring you to bet maximum credits on every spin, like predatory progressives demand. A former programmer told me the math actually gives players a fair shot, which is language you rarely hear from people who've seen the internal workings of slot machine code. The visible progressive counters create transparency that's absent from most modern slots. You can watch the values climb and make informed decisions about timing and bet sizing. That reduced mystery factor translates into better player choices, and better player choices mean the house edge doesn't compound through emotional decision-making the way casinos typically rely on. Now, machine number 8 is particularly interesting because it's one that floor supervisors told me they actually felt good about offering to customers. Remember Buffalo Gold from the machines to avoid? This is different, and former technicians want you to understand exactly why. Machine number 8, Buffalo Stampede. The distinction between Buffalo family machines matters more than most players realize. According to internal programming data, Buffalo Stampede runs between 94.5 and 96% RTP, while Buffalo Gold sits at 86 to 88%. That's an 8% difference, which, over thousands of spins, translates to dramatically different outcomes. Former technicians explain the volatility profile is high on both machines, but Stampede's volatility is transparent rather than manipulative. The bonus feature triggers approximately every 120 to 150 spins, compared to 300 plus on Gold. The free games re-trigger at significantly higher rates, and the base game hit frequency keeps your bankroll alive between bonus rounds instead of bleeding you dry while you chase features. A former floor supervisor shared what he described as a redemption story. He'd felt guilty watching players lose on Buffalo Gold, knowing the programming was designed for aggressive extraction. When Buffalo Stampede appeared on his floor, he actively recommended it to players as an alternative, telling me this was the one I could recommend with a clear conscience. He documented a player named Robert who switched from Gold to Stampede based on his suggestion. Over 3 months of tracked play, the contrast was startling. Robert had lost $3,200 on Buffalo Gold over 2 months of regular weekend sessions. On Buffalo Stampede over the next 3 months, using the same bankroll management and play style, Robert won $1,800. Same player, same betting patterns, different machine. Former technicians explain this dramatic difference comes down to programming philosophy. Buffalo Gold was designed during the peak of predatory slot development, coded specifically to maximize the gap between player expectations and actual returns. Buffalo Stampede represents a newer model, where casinos learned that sustainable players generate more lifetime value than quick extraction victims. The free games. Re-trigger rate keeps sessions exciting. The base game doesn't punish you for playing, and the large win potential remains intact while the path to reach it is more transparent. Casinos keep Buffalo Stampede on floors because of brand recognition. Players see the Buffalo name and assume all versions are equivalent, which former marketing directors describe as a hidden in plain sight strategy. The predatory versions attract uninformed players while the better version sits available for anyone who knows the distinction. And now we're getting to the final 2 machines on this list. Machine number 9 has what former employees call the fairest bonus structure in the industry, and machine number 10 represents the future of where slot programming is heading. These last 2 machines represent what slots could be if casinos genuinely prioritized player experience alongside profit. Machine number 9, Cash Wizard. Former game designers told me this machine represents what they wish all slots could be, and that statement reveals something profound about the gap between what's possible in slot programming and what casinos typically choose to implement. According to internal documentation, Cash Wizard runs between 95 and 97% RTP, depending on denomination. But the numbers alone don't capture why former employees describe this machine with what sounds like genuine affection. The bonus structure offers multiple pathways to wins rather than funneling you toward a single feature designed to create false hope. Former analysts who've examined the programming specifics explain that Cash Wizard employs what they call a balanced volatility algorithm, meaning the variance doesn't artificially spike to create the emotional chaos that predatory machines rely on. Hit frequency across all features has been documented by former floor managers, and the consistency matches what the programming promises rather than diverging into the manipulative patterns you'll find on most casino floors. A former game designer reached out after seeing documentation I'd shared from other casino employees. His insider perspective on Cash Wizard's development process revealed something casinos don't want discussed. The design team created this machine with player sustainability as an actual priority, and when company executives pressured them to adjust the programming to make it more profitable through extraction tactics, the designers resisted. This former programmer told me, "This is the machine I'm actually proud of," which is a statement you rarely hear from people who've spent careers building gambling devices. Casino internal reviews of the Cash Wizard player base over an 18-month study leaked through a former analyst show findings that contradict everything casinos typically see in their data. 35% of regular players showed profit over that study. Period. Compare that to the industry standard of 5 to 8% profitability rates, and you're looking at a machine that fundamentally operates differently than what modern casino economics normally allow. The specific player profile that emerged from that leaked data tells the complete story. A woman identified in the documentation as Karen maintained a $400 monthly entertainment budget. Over 18 months of tracked play exclusively on Cash Wizard, the internal reports showed she was net positive $1,200. Former employees explained this shouldn't be possible on machines programmed with standard casino practices, but Cash Wizard's multiple feature structure creates the sustainability. The wheel bonus operates on true randomization rather than weighted algorithms that favor the house beyond the stated RTP. The free games feature re-triggers at rates that match legitimate probability curves. The pick bonus distributes wins across a fair curve, instead of clustering them at low values. Former slot attendants report that players left happy even when they lost because the experience felt honest, and that feeling translated into better bankroll decisions that let the favorable math actually work. And now for the final machine on this list. Machine number 10 represents not just the best current option, but what industry insiders suggest is the future direction of slot design. Machine number 10, Dragon Link, specifically the Lucky Drums version. Former technicians explain this machine matters because it demonstrates where regulatory pressure and player education are forcing the industry. According to programming specifications that former analysts have shared, the RTP runs between 96 and 98% on optimal denomination. That's the highest percentage on this entire list, and it exists on a machine that's widely available on casino floors right now. The hold and spin mechanics employ fair probability distribution that former programmers say represents a genuine shift in design philosophy. The progressive structure balances community jackpots with individual progressives in ways that create real value rather than theatrical illusion. The grand jackpot triggers on average every 180,000 spins, which sounds like a massive number until former employees explain that's actually an attainable frequency compared to the multi-million spin requirements on predatory progressives. A former casino host documented a player named Michael, whose year-long history with Dragon Link tells the complete story of what this machine makes possible. Michael started as a skeptic, having been burned on typical slots for years. He maintained a $600 monthly entertainment budget and approached Lucky Drums with careful tracking and disciplined bankroll management. Over 12 months, the host's documentation showed Michael logged a $1,400 profit. One breakthrough session had him turning $500 into $7,200 when he hit a major progressive, but the sustainability came from consistent smaller wins maintaining his bankroll between significant features. Michael told the host, "This is the only machine I trust," and former employees say that trust comes from programming that actually delivers on its promises. The symbol distribution has been verified as fair by former programmers who've examined the code. The hold and spin probability curves follow mathematical models that don't artificially weight against players. The progressive contribution rates are transparent rather than hidden behind complicated formulas designed to obscure the house advantage. Former casino executives explained the business case that makes machines like Dragon Link possible, despite their player-friendly programming. Sustainable players generate more lifetime value than quick extraction victims, and regulatory pressure combined with player education is forcing casinos to adapt their models. Player advocacy groups cite Dragon Link as evidence that reform is possible, and former compliance officers say, this is what slots should be. So now you know the 10 machines that former employees actually respect, and you understand the patterns that separate honest programming from predatory design. Let's quickly recap what you now know that most casino players never learn. These 10 machines average between 94 and 97% RTP compared to the 86 to 88% you'll find on the predatory slots that fill most casino floors. Lightning Link Wild Chili, the classic 3-reel Wheel of Fortune, Blazing Sevens, Double Diamond, Bonus Times, Jackpot Party, Quick Hit Platinum, Buffalo Stampede, Cash Wizard, and Dragon Link Lucky Drums. This information comes from documentation provided by over 30 former casino employees across 7 different states, including internal reports, programmer specifications, and floor manager records that casinos never intended for public release. Based on insider reports and analysis of available data, you now understand more about slot machine programming than 95% of the people walking onto casino floors. You're part of an informed player group that former employees say casinos actually worry about, because knowledge eliminates the information asymmetry that the entire industry relies on. But here's what all 10 of these machines have in common beyond just the favorable return percentages. Former technicians explain they share transparent volatility, meaning you can actually understand the pattern rather than being manipulated by artificial variants designed to create emotional chaos. They feature honest hit frequency, where bonus features trigger at the documented rates instead of employing near-miss algorithms that make you think you almost won. The programming includes minimal psychological manipulation compared to modern video slots that weaponize every visual and audio element against your decision-making. And they offer fair bonus structures that provide genuine potential for profit over time rather than theatrical features designed purely for extraction. Former casino executives told me something that initially shocked me, but makes perfect sense when you understand the evolving economics. Casinos internally classify machines as extractors versus retainers, and these 10 machines fall into the retainer category. They're designed to keep players happy and returning, rather than bleeding them dry in single sessions. The business model recognizes that sustainable players generate more lifetime revenue than quick extraction victims, and regulatory pressure combined with player education is forcing this adaptation industry-wide. An anonymous former casino VP explained it perfectly. We make more money when players feel they have a chance. But here's what even these better machines cannot overcome, and former employees insist this context matters as much as the machine selection itself. House edge still exists even on a 96% RTP machine. That 4% difference compounds over time, and variance creates short-term losses even when the long-term math favors sustainability. You must never gamble money you cannot afford to lose. Set loss limits before you start playing. Establish time limits that prevent emotional decision-making from taking over, and understand the distinction between entertainment value and profit expectations. Former casino hosts explain that smart players treat even the best machines with respect, because a mathematical edge is still an edge regardless of how small. Remember the woman from the previous video who lost $40,000 on Wheel of Fortune video slots? Imagine if she'd known about these 10 machines instead. That's 15 years of entertainment budget destroyed by predatory programming, when better options sat 50 feet away on the same casino floor. This is the information asymmetry that hurts players, and this video exists to correct that imbalance. In my next video, I'm going to reveal the specific bankroll management system that former casino hosts use when they play these machines themselves, including the exact bet sizing formula that maximizes your time on sustainable slots while minimizing variance risk. There's one more piece of insider information that ties everything together, and it involves the Psychological discipline that separates players who actually profit from those who understand the math but still lose. Let me know in the comments which of these 10 machines you're going to try first, and if you've played any of them, share your experience because I'm actively collecting player data to verify what these internal reports suggest. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the bankroll management video. And if this information added genuine value to your understanding, let me know by leaving a like. This information represents years of insider documentation, compiled from people who spent careers watching players lose on predatory machines while better options existed. You now have the knowledge that casino employees use themselves when they choose to gamble. The house edge doesn't have to beat you if you select machines programmed with honest math instead of psychological warfare.